I was 28 years old living in Everett, Washington, and my life revolved around the most beautiful tiny human I had ever seen, my daughter. She was only a few months old, and every smile she gave me was like sunshine. But sunshine doesn't pay the bills, so I was juggling a couple of jobs trying to make ends meet. One of those jobs was an evening gig at a really nice little liquor store. I worked the closing shift most nights, which meant I was usually locking up around midnight, then rushing home to relieve the babysitter and grab a few precious hours of sleep before my baby girl was ready to start her day again. It was exhausting but worth it every single minute. I loved my daughter more than anything, and I was determined to give her the best life I possibly could. The liquor store job was actually pretty good. The pay was decent, the hours fit around my other work and my baby's schedule, and most of my coworkers were genuinely nice people. The owner was a laid-back kind of guy who seemed to appreciate my hard work and never gave me any trouble. In fact, everything about that job would have been perfect except for one huge problem: a woman who decided she was the manager. This woman, let's call her Deborah, wasn't actually the manager. She just thought she was. She was older than me, probably in her 50s, and had this air about her like she owned the place. From the very first day I started, Deborah took an instant, inexplicable dislike to me. I couldn't figure it out for the life of me. Her own teenage daughter, who also worked at the store sometimes, even told me she didn't know why her mom was so awful to me. Everyone else, from the stock boys to the other cashiers, I got along with great, but Deborah. She acted like I was personally offending her just by existing. She was territorial, always hovering, always watching me, always finding fault with the smallest things. It made my shifts a constant source of stress. I was always on edge, waiting for her to pounce. It wasn't a fun way to spend my evenings when I should have been focused on helping customers and getting my work done. I tried to ignore her for the most part, biting my tongue, keeping my head down, and just focusing on the job. I really needed the money. Losing this job was not an option for a single mom like me. The owner, bless his heart, was too nice to confront Deborah, or maybe he just didn't want the drama. He seemed to rely on her for some reason, so he just let her run wild with her self-proclaimed authority. I was stuck between a rock and a hard place, needing the income but dreading every shift Deborah was on. I tried talking to Deborah directly once early on, asking if there was something I was doing wrong, trying to clear the air. Her eyes just narrowed, and she told me to just focus on my work and stop bothering her. It was a clear dismissal, a clear sign that she wasn't interested in peace, only in asserting her dominance. I even tried casually mentioning to the owner how Deborah seemed to have an issue with me, hoping he might intervene, but he just chuckled uncomfortably and said, "Oh, that's just Deborah, she's a bit particular, don't worry about it, Maya." So I was on my own. The little annoyances started to build up. Deborah would rearrange my perfectly stocked shelves right after I left, only to complain the next day that they weren't done correctly. She'd question my sales numbers, accusing me of shorting the till, even though my drawer was always perfect. She'd make passive-aggressive comments about my age or my choices, things like, "Must be nice to only have to work evenings," hinting that my life was somehow easier than hers, even though she knew I had a baby at home. Each day felt like a small battle, and I was constantly trying to keep my composure, to be the bigger person, to not let her get under my skin, but it was wearing me down. I was tired, not just from juggling jobs and motherhood, but from the emotional drain of dealing with Deborah's negativity every single day. My patience was wearing thin, and I could feel my frustration bubbling just beneath the surface. I started dreading going into work, a feeling I hated because I usually loved interacting with customers and my other coworkers. The problem was growing, a dark cloud over what should have been a perfectly good job. Then came the spilled milk incident, the moment everything came to a head. The night before, I had put away a large dairy order. It was late, I was rushing to finish before closing, and I must have missed something. One of the milk cartons, a big gallon jug, must have had a tiny leak. I didn't see it when I stocked it, and everything looked fine to me at the time. But overnight, that small leak turned into a considerable mess. The following morning, Deborah was the one who opened the store. I walked in for my next shift later that day, already tired from being up with my baby, and the air was thick with tension. Deborah was waiting for me, practically vibrating with rage. She marched me right behind the counter where other employees were trying to discreetly listen in and where customers could clearly see and hear us. Her voice was sharp, cutting, and full of accusation. She tore into me loudly, publicly, as if I had deliberately caused the mess to spite her. She accused me of being careless, irresponsible, and lazy, yelling about how much time it took her to clean it up and how I was always making mistakes. The humiliation burned through me. All the pent-up frustration, all the silent treatment, all the microaggressions she had thrown my way for months, it all exploded inside me. I looked her right in the eye, my face probably flushed, but a sudden calm settled over me. And with the biggest, most genuinely sweet smile I could possibly muster, I said in a voice clear and loud enough for everyone to hear, "Hasn't anyone ever told you that you shouldn't cry over spilled milk?" The silence that followed was deafening. Deborah's jaw dropped, her face contorting from fury into something akin to disbelief, then pure, unadulterated hatred. Daggers shot from her eyes, and for a fleeting moment I actually thought she might lunge at me. She looked like she wanted to cause me physical harm. My heart pounded, but a strange sense of satisfaction filled me. It was a foolish, risky thing to say, I knew that instantly, but in that moment it felt incredible. However, the fear quickly followed the thrill. I knew then and there that I couldn't stay. Deborah's rage was too intense, too personal. My job and my peace of mind were truly at risk. I had pushed her too far and she would make my life a living hell if I stayed, or worse, she would find a way to get me fired. I couldn't risk losing this job, but I also couldn't risk my mental health or the stress impacting my ability to care for my daughter. I had to act fast, but I also wanted to make sure I got a satisfying ending. I had taken her abuse for months, swallowed my pride, and tried to be the mature one. Now it was my turn. As much fun as that little quip had been, it also made me realize that all my efforts to avoid conflict and just get along had failed. Things were worse than ever. I was at my lowest point at that job, feeling threatened and utterly exhausted. All my previous attempts to solve the problem had only made Deborah angrier and more determined to make my life miserable. It was clear I couldn't solve the problem by staying or by trying to reason with her. My only way out was to leave, but I wasn't going to just quietly disappear. I needed to get even. I started my job search with a renewed sense of purpose, fueled by indignation and a desire for sweet revenge. It was incredibly challenging, trying to find interview times that didn't conflict with my current work schedule or my childcare arrangements for my baby. I spent my precious few hours of sleep scouring online job boards, practicing interview questions in my head while rocking my daughter back to sleep, and sending out applications whenever I could snatch a moment. It felt like an impossible task, an additional burden on an already overstretched life. But every time I thought of Deborah's sneering face, her hateful glare, and her threat of physical harm, it gave me the boost I needed to keep going. I was determined to find something better, something that would not only provide for my family but also give me back my peace of mind. I needed a job where I was respected, not constantly undermined. During one of my shifts, a crucial piece of information caught my eye: the employee vacation schedule, prominently displayed on the break room wall. My eyes scanned it, and there it was, highlighted in red marker, Deborah's name and 2 glorious weeks off scheduled for early next month. A mischievous idea began to form in my mind, a little spark of pure, unadulterated revenge. The timing I thought could be absolutely perfect. I redoubled my efforts, pushing through the exhaustion. I went on several interviews, dressed in my best clothes, trying to appear fresh and energetic despite barely sleeping, and then finally it happened. I got an offer for a fantastic new job, one with better pay, better hours, and a much more supportive environment. It was a lifeline, a true blessing. And the best part, the start date aligned perfectly with my developing plan. My heart did a little triumphant dance. I had found my escape and I had found my weapon. I waited until I had a concrete start date for my new position, then I meticulously calculated the exact moment. 2 weeks before Deborah's long-anticipated vacation, I walked into the owner's office, a calm, resolute smile on my face. My voice was steady as I told him how much I appreciated the opportunity he had given me, but that I had found another position that was a better fit for my family and my career goals. Then I handed him my 2 weeks' notice. He looked genuinely surprised and a little disappointed, which I appreciated. He asked if there was anything he could do to make me stay. I just smiled and politely declined, keeping my big secret to myself. The owner, being the decent man he was, called Deborah into his office right after I left, probably to discuss how they would cover my shifts. I could hear their muffled voices through the thin walls of the back office. Then the owner emerged, and my heart gave a little leap of pure, wicked joy. He looked at Deborah, who was standing there, arms crossed, probably expecting to complain about my departure. He told her in a serious tone that with my departure they were going to be short-staffed, especially for the evening shifts, and because of that he regretted to inform her that she was going to need to postpone her vacation until he found a suitable replacement for me. He actually said, until I find a replacement for Maya. I was standing just close enough to hear every word, pretending to be busy organizing some shelves. Deborah's face, which had been set in a self-satisfied smirk just moments before, slowly drained of color. Her mouth fell open, and her eyes, those same eyes that had shot daggers at me just weeks ago, now looked utterly devastated. The expression of pure disbelief and rage on her face was a masterpiece. She sputtered, trying to protest, but the owner was firm. There was no one else to cover. Her vacation was off. I looked at her, my eyes meeting hers across the aisle, and I couldn't help it. A wide, genuine grin spread across my face. It was the most beautiful moment of sweet, poetic revenge I had ever experienced. The woman who had made my life miserable, who had tried to drive me out, was now forced to pay the price for my departure. She was stuck, facing the consequences of her own toxicity. I got to walk out of that store 2 weeks later, head held high, a spring in my step, ready for my new, respectful job. I didn't look back. My new job was everything I hoped it would be. The stress melted away, and I felt like myself again, a more confident version of myself who wasn't afraid to stand up for her worth. I could finally devote more energy to my daughter, enjoy my time with her without the cloud of work drama hanging over me. Life in Everett, Washington felt genuinely good again. Sometimes I'd run into old coworkers from the liquor store. They'd always say how much they missed me and how things just weren't the same without me, and they'd always mention Deborah. Apparently, without me there, the owner started noticing how much drama she caused. Her manager's status quickly dissolved, and she wasn't quite as indispensable as she thought she was. The last I heard, she was still working there, but she'd been given fewer shifts and a lot less responsibility. It turned out that my departure didn't just inconvenience her vacation, it was the first domino in her downfall. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just getting even, it's walking away and letting karma do the rest.